alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I want to play a game. Groovy.
Hello and welcome to the Sounds from the Grave podcast. My name is Yussef.
And my name is Vanya.
And we all float down here too.
And we're back with another exciting episode discussing Halloween Horror Nights and its history, an event hosted by Universal Studios every year.
Yes, we're going to be kind of going down kind of year by year, just talking a little bit about each year and then talking about our experiences and our thoughts on horror nights.
Absolutely. But we are probably going to start with the history with Halloween Horror Nights taking place in Orlando, Hollywood, Singapore, and Japan, started in the 1990s.
Yeah, and I'm seeing here too that it's an event that's worked on year round by the creative team, and it definitely shows because the amount of effort that they put into this stuff every year is just crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that the event also started here in Orlando. And I actually didn't think that it started in Orlando. I thought it was like a Hollywood thing at first, too.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think Hollywood kind of did it first.
Why would you
In
say that?
the 80s, I think they try to do something similar to it. But theirs was more of a haunted tram tour type of thing, but it just couldn't compete with Knott's Berry Farm at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of fair.
Yeah.
But basically, how Universal Studios started, it started here in Florida in 1991. One slow fall season after the opening of Back to the Future, Confrontation. Well, it was Confrontation first, and then it was Jaws, but they were having some complications in the summer rides that were trying to open up. So Back to the Future
Yeah.
was like the saving grace of Universal Studios here in Florida. But then since the fall season was very slow. The CEO and chairman of Universal Studios Resorts and Parks, which was Jay Steen at the time, had approached Julie Zimmerman, which was actually the creator of Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, very cool. Julie Zimmerman, huh?
Yeah.
She was the creative director of the park itself, though, right?
Yeah, she was. And the fact that I wasn't sure if Mickey's Not So Scary came up first before Universal had started their Halloween event, which is basically Halloween Horror Nights, but it came with an inspiration of having a Halloween party for the park. And it was not so much of what we know of Halloween Horror Nights now, but it's more of a Halloween party based, like a festival for Halloween rather than
straight up houses and
yeah, and the scare zones that we know today. Yeah. So the first house was actually housed in Jaws, which it was in the Jaws queue when they were still doing the maintenance on Jaws, and it was called Dungeon of Terror.
Rip Joss.
Yeah, Rip Jaws is now closed, which is the sad part of it all. But the fact that it had so many complications, but it did live out more than Confrontation, which I heard was
sure.
a really cool ride.
Yeah, I got to ride Confrontation I think once, and I remember having a good time on
I never rode Confrontation. Lucky you.
it. Actually,
I
you know
always
what's really
wanted
funny,
to.
too? You know what's really funny? When they were, when they took out Jaws and they were rebuilding it for Gringotts, one of the sharks from the ride, they actually were not able to pull it out. So it's currently sitting in Gringotts, in the catacombs in Gringotts.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wouldn't
it's
it be
actually
technically where whatchamacallit, what's Nocturne Alley? Is it near there?
No, it's actually part of the ride. It's inside of some of the parts of the actual Gringotts ride.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
That's
but it's just sitting there, it's kind of chilling.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that. So what I was saying was that the first house was housed in the Jaws queue when it was down for maintenance to try and get it back up, but they used it for basically Fright Nights, which was the first Halloween Horror Nights, and the cost was $12.95. Oh, I wish.
Wow, it was only $12.95.
Yeah, it was.
That's a drink now at Horror Nights.
That's a drink.
That's
That's
a price of
with
a
the
drink.
blinky cups.
With the blinky cups, yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, I wonder when that started, the whole entire Blinky Cups thing.
Hmm. I don't know.
And that's something with that we're probably gonna have to research for the next podcast.
Yeah, for sure. And also,
Yeah,
we should look up recipes on how to make the mixed drinks, because I'm down for
I know how to make Shark Attack. Shark Attack is so
that.
good, but
Shark
it's
Attack.
like easy to do. Yeah. The only thing that I don't have was the red grenadine to simulate the blood.
Mm,
But I would
fun.
like to also know the other ones.
Another place that we can send you guys to if you ever go to the parks, yeah, specifically to Universal, go to the San Francisco area and go to the little bar that's over there and ask for a Shark Attack. You will not be sorry.
No, it's probably one of the better drinks at Universal,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's worth it. It's better than the most watered down drinks that you could actually get around the resort. Besides the Fat Tuesday, because I also love Fat
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
You can't go wrong with a Fat Tuesday.
So basically, in 1992, the event was changed to the name was changed to Halloween Horror Nights due to copyright reasons of the name Fright Nights, which was the movie.
Oh yeah, Fright Night. Yeah.
And that's also with the poster with the chainsaw smashing the pumpkin. That was that year that they used that, which you already saw in the tribute store that they
Yeah,
are
that was on
also
one of the
selling
shirts, right?
that. Yes, it's on the shirts.
See, I don't know why. I always thought for some reason that logo was one for like the third year for Halloween Horror Nights 3. I don't know why.
Mm. Well, I forgot which was number three. I don't think they changed the logo for three, right?
I don't think they did. I thought that
I,
was it
I
started
think
on
for
three, but I might be wrong.
94 there was the mummy. Maybe 94 was the mummy one.
I thought that was 99.
Dang, I feel uneducated. It's
Well,
fine.
that's what
We'll
we're
look
doing this
this up.
podcast for. We're educating ourselves and we're educating our people.
Yes, absolutely. So the Dungeon of Terror does return for this second year, but they do have a second new house after the movie People Under the Stairs, which was housed in Soundstage 23.
Hmm, very cool. I've actually never seen that movie at all, so
Me
even if I went to that
neither.
house, I would have been so lost. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
I heard a lot of people in the Twitter community said it was one of the better houses, the ones
Really?
that have been
Hmm.
going for a really long time since the beginning of it all.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah, and this was also the year that Bill and Ted Excellent Halloween Adventure was premiered, which is I know that a lot of you are like hardcore Bill and Ted fans, and but also there's
Myself included.
also yeah, and also like there's the other side of the Halloween Horror Nights cult or fandom, if you will, that is all for Academy of Villains since it premiered in Halloween Horror Nights 26, but we'll get that to that in a second.
Yes, we will.
So HHN in Hollywood started in 1992, but due to the unsuccessfulness of the rivalry against Not Scary Farm, it was canceled for a couple of years and it didn't start back up until 1997, which is super impressive that they didn't have a Halloween Horror Nights for that long.
Yeah, it's kind of sucks for the people in Hollywood. They're like, we don't get anything.
Yeah, I wonder if like the people from California actually came to Orlando to experience it while, you know,
I'm sure there are a number of like native Californians that would just come here for the whole like the horror night stuff.
yeah, I also heard that Knox Scary Farm was one of the better haunts next to Halloween Horror Nights, but since Halloween Horror Nights is like the pride of Orlando,
Mm.
I don't think Knox Berry Farm would even dare to try and come over and open a park here, but I could be
No, I
wrong.
don't think so.
We have a lot of theme parks over here, and I don't think we haven't had a new open theme park since Legoland.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, but that's good. At least we know that Universal will not be overthrown by Halloween Horror Nights just yet.
Nope.
The Halloween Horror Nights 3, it ran for 7 nights and it had two new houses, which was Slaughterhouse, which was housed in Jaws, but it had to be moved because Jaws was about to open,
Ah,
which,
okay.
yeah, it took a long time to do that, but I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure. But then they also had the first Bates Motel slash Psycho House, which was called Psychopath Maze, which was located on the Bates Motel set.
That's a set that I would have loved to see. Maybe
Uh,
I did as a child, but I don't remember it. But
Yeah, I
I would
don't.
have loved to see the Bates Motel. Like I've seen the one in Hollywood, but like
Yeah, the one
this
in
one
the
a little bit
hotel.
closer.
Yeah, the one in the hotel in California looks really nice, especially with the tour, the tram tour that they make you
Hmm.
do in California. Like I wish I would have been able to actually like step onto the property and like explore, but now it's like what overtaken by Kids Zone. That's where it is.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what Kid Zone is now.
It's crazy because James Keaton actually tweeted this the other day when he was actually like James Keaton tweeted that he could actually see the Bates Motel when he used to work at Barney. So
Oh
it
wow.
was, yeah, the huge, like the house, the little mansion that Norma Bates lives. So I
That's
thought
pretty
that was
cool.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But this was also the year that made Universal realize that this event was a moneymaker and that people genuinely liked the event.
I mean, what's not to like?
I'm I mean, like mind you, this just came out of the blue. It was just something to occupy the fall season since their summer was like Universal's. I mean, it's always Universal's busy time, but they
Yeah.
needed something in the fall. But then, thanks to Julie Zimmerman, they were able to expand on this idea.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really all thanks to her.
So in 1994, there were also two new houses, which was the Boneyard and Hell's Kitchen, and it was the first use of a scare zone, which was located in the Hollywood area called Horrorwood. Yeah,
I wonder what they used to have on there. Like, what sort of like
it was
actors
like
and.
celebrities that were like really bloody, and it was kind of like like killers and zombie like. So I saw
Hmm.
like a couple of pictures. It actually looked like really cool, and I'm guessing this is also the year that they figured out that chainsaws. How to incorporate chainsaws into their
Yeah.
scare zone as well, because they had the chainsaw drill team, and they were almost at every Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando thus far.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only been like what 2 or 3 years that they haven't been there, but other than that, they've pretty much been like
Oh,
very consistent with it.
I'm pretty sure. Like, I wonder if like they're the ones that trained the scare actors to use the chainsaws.
That'd be really cool, kind of like a
If you're a
passing down
scare
the torch
actor,
type of thing.
if you're a scare actor, let us know. Is this true?
Are like the original chainsaw drill team? Are they like immortal and they're like they like train you and stuff?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's passed down through other people. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. It's called the Journal of Drill Team.
So this was also the year that they used the term scare actors, which is obviously iconic if you really talk about Halloween Horror Nights in that aspect of when you think of Halloween Horror Nights, the first thing you're going to think about is scare actors because
Yeah.
that's the one thing you look forward to every time you visit the park. So I thought that was a really creative way to like instead of using actors or singers or screamers, if anything, that's a really awful name. Don't use screamers, but scare actors, I think, is a really fitting name for them.
Yeah, for sure. Cause like they're actors that are meant to scare you, so they're scare actors. I remember for a while I couldn't tell if it was scare actors or scarectors, like scary characters.
Yeah, yeah. I actually like been guilty of using
I
scary.
have
It's
to,
like
yeah.
characters.
Scarectors.
I was like because
But like it
instead of
doesn't have
character,
the
it's like
yeah,
characters.
it doesn't have a nice ring as like scare actor does though.
Yeah.
It rolls off the tongue better.
So in 1995, Halloween Horror Nights 5, it was one of the first years that they had an icon, but it was not actually theirs, but it was
Hmm.
hosted by the Crypt Keeper, which was a part of the HBO's Tales from the Crypt. So if you guys have remembered that there was that rumor that it would might potentially come back this year, that's probably where they drew the idea from because Universal's is very much trying to keep that retro feeling that they're trying to bring back through all their merchandise this year with
Hmm.
the opening day and basically like the opening time for Halloween Horror Nights that they're also trying to bring back all the old classics from Halloween Horror Nights past.
Yeah, that sounds like what they're kind of trying to go for when it comes to like their marketing and advertisements. Like it's been 30 years. Like look at how much has happened in the last 30 years for Horror Nights.
Yeah, I mean they've only been going for what 5 years.
at this
That's
point.
this point that we're talking to. Yes,
Yeah.
because they expanded to 12 nights rather than 7 nights,
Mm.
and they just have a lot more things to work with, especially adding the new houses. And also, this year was the year that the House of Horrors, my bad, was the first dual path house, which one path had a classic horror monsters path, and the other one featured like newer horror characters.
Yeah, that sounds really cool because like you could essentially like it's a double house type of thing.
I wonder what it would include. Like, I didn't read too much into it of what it meant by newer horror characters versus classic horror. I'm guessing we're talking
Probably
about.
classic horror. I'm thinking like the Universal monsters. Like your Frankenstein, your Bride, your Creature from the Black Lagoon type of stuff.
Yeah, I'm
And
pretty
then
sure it meant that. And then for
yeah,
newer horror characters, probably like well, not slashers, because that came like years later. So I
mm,
don't know what they would consider as newer horror characters because they still didn't have the rights to the new line cinema characters yet.
yeah. Well, it might have been like maybe like other films that Universal had released, like horror films that they released.
Yeah.
Because I know like maybe something to do with like Army of Darkness. Because I know like they're the ones that distributed Army of Darkness, so they might have had something like that on there.
Yeah.
Wait, did it?
So
Yeah,
in
that Army of Darkness had come out already.
So in Halloween Horror Nights 1996, it was expanded to 15 nights, and the Crypt Keeper comes back, but he is not an icon this year. He did host a parade called the Festival of the Dead Parade, and it was also the end of Julie Zimmerman's career at Halloween Horror Nights to work on another project outside of Universal.
That's crazy though, because like just in 3 years she brought like so much to it. Like right off the bat on in like four you have the first scare zone, the first scare actors, the chainsaw drill team, and then
Yeah,
in like five you have like the big expansion, the first Igon, and then you have your
yeah.
parades and stuff like that's she's really like laid the groundwork for a lot of what is still being used today.
What's even crazier to me is that she's a girl, and people don't down talk on girls in the horror community. So e- eat that
That's what I like to
male
call.
stereotype. Male stereotype.
That's that's Pishikaka because anybody, man or woman or however you identify, if you
Yeah.
like horror, do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not misogynistic or sexist or anything, but I do get girls get put down a lot for the horror community. And this was an amazing idea that she brought to life into
For
the
sure.
parks. And
Yeah.
she was able to. I wonder if anybody even follows her legacy or knows that she is responsible for an amazing event like this.
Mhm.
So we are skipping over to 3 years later. I'm not sure why they don't want to mention 7 or 8, but we are going to Halloween Horror Nights 9, which is in 1999, and it actually have been added 19 nights, 5 houses, 3 shows, and a nightly parade. So I always wondered what the nightly parades would look like for Halloween Horror Nights because I don't think we have had that in
I
years.
think I think if I'm not mistaken, 18 had one, but I think that was like the last year that they ever did one.
18
And that was a Bloody
was
Mary.
Bloody Mary. It had a
I
parade.
thought I had a parade. I might be mistaken though. Like I kind of remember seeing a parade,
Mm-hmm.
but like never actually like seeing the parade, but like seeing it in the background type of thing.
I think my first year was 19, which is why I don't remember a whole lot. Or
Mm,
if it did, I'm gonna have to look up how these nightly parades look like. But it does sound really cool, especially since the
yeah,
first one was hosted by the Crypt Keeper, and I'm pretty sure they have another way of celebrating Halloween Horror Nights, just like the way that they do Mardi Gras. But
yeah.
they use the same Mardi Gras floats sometimes, like almost every year,
Oh
which
yeah.
is I wish they
Just
would change it up a little bit.
hmm It would be cool to though to like see like a return to at least like maybe for like 1 year at least like to a parade just to like see what they do with it now.
Yeah. So this was also the year that they used the first 3D house called Creature Feature, and it was also the first year that it surpassed Not Scary Farm. So it's a win-win for them because they've been struggling in Hollywood, and I'm pretty sure that's when it came back for 1997, as I mentioned, for Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, the first time it came back from 1997 because they were actually they brought it back in '97, but they actually had to cancel it again because of an accident with a team member at the time.
How resourceful is this information, Yusef?
If you look up their wiki, if you go to the Horror Nights Hollywood wiki, you can find it.
Okay.
It's
I was
all
about to
it's
say,
all
you
there.
using Wikipedia? You serious?
No, I'm getting it from the Hollywood wiki.
All right. I'll believe you. I'll believe you. So we are going to go to the iconic year that everybody seems to remember. If you are a veteran or somewhat new like us, with their creative team wanted to come up with a character to represent the 10th anniversary. And it was the year that Jack the Clown was introduced, Jack Smith, and he was actually birthed out of the common phobia of clowns. And we all love that clown. Everybody adores him, everybody knows him.
Yes, he's a clown. Everybody loves clowns,
I don't
especially
believe
killer clowns.
everybody. Oh, killer. Oh, I wonder if anybody has said, let's put Jack with killer clowns. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. So, like, so Jack was also a former clown and serial killer, according to the legends of the origin story of Jack, and from Oddfellows Carnival, which was his former owner. And he was known for murdering 13 children on Halloween night of 1920.
Oh, so we all celebrate Halloween in a different way. That's just how he does it.
I mean,
Some
there's
of
a
us,
clown, there's a murder of children. I mean, that's
exactly.
classic way to fuel the inner childhood dream, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like some
Just
of us, some of us grab a tub of popcorn, have a horror movie marathon. Some of us go out to Halloween parties, and some of us kill 13 kids. It's just everybody's different,
and there's also the college kids that like to party and get
and also
murdered,
kill 13 kids.
and also kill 13 kids. Got it. Um, and finally, every house in Scare Zone was tied to Jack's story. It had 19 nights, 5 houses, and 4 scare zones that year. So I think that was the most scare zones they've had like thus far, right?
Yeah, I think at the time that was like the most amount of scare zones, and I think it's also like a lot of people consider it like the first like big year, like the first like kind of like the one that changed everything. Like starting from this, it kind of turned into like a year where like they had a lot of icons and they kind of expanded like at a pretty quick pace.
Yeah. I feel like this was also the year that they had finally got an original icon, like instead of like getting something that was already pre-made by
Yeah,
another company.
yeah, it's kind of where like I would say they got like their own identity for like the event, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
But then moving on, we have HHN 11 that was back in 2001. Um, and this one was originally intended to extend Jack's story based around his brother Eddie. And funny enough, the original plan was actually to have Eddie kill Jack and become the icon for that year. But unfortunately, the events of 9/11 um, it kind of forced the creative team to like make some changes to the event. Like they could actually had to remove blood, gore, body parts, like severed heads and stuff like that.
Oh
Like a lot of
man,
stuff
that's
had to be.
awful.
Yeah, they had to take so much
Because
stuff
like
out.
that's like the best part of Halloween Horror
Yeah,
Nights is that all of the blood and gore that we're used to knowing. So I wonder how they even managed that year when they had to like
yeah,
take out all the stuff that actually makes part of a horror film. I'm not saying all the gory horror films are like needed because I know
yeah.
that there's a like the psychological horror and all that stuff, but like everything else, like how are you supposed to kill someone if you can't
Yeah.
showcase that?
So actually, that does make me curious. Like, if anybody that listens to this, if they actually ever went to HHN 11, I would love to like get your opinions on like how that event was compared to like, you know, in terms of like censorship, as to like
Yes.
how that affected the event.
It's like the safe harbor like version of like Halloween Horror Nights,
Yeah.
you know, just safe harbor. It's like, okay. I mean, I get it. Like, it was a very sensitive time for
Yeah.
America, and
Exactly.
like it wouldn't have been appropriate anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they decided to go on with the event, knowing of the events, and it was in September, so that was
Mm-hmm.
even a month before. I'm pretty sure they had to scrap a lot of ideas.
Yeah. I mean, and probably definitely like the biggest idea that they have described. They ended up getting rid of Eddie in the first place and just brought Jack back to it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure not a lot of people complained.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would have been cool to see Eddie like have his own year, and but I wonder how his voice would have sounded and how he would have been incorporated too.
hmm Not only that, you gotta wonder too, like how different the events would have been now if Jack was no longer part of the story. You know.
They have threatened to remove Jack many years, but
Really?
like he ends up coming back every single time.
I
Like
think that seems
the,
like a horror movie villain. They always come back.
that's Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. It's every slasher. And but after that, we move on to HHN 12. That was actually the first time that was that it was done at like Islands of Adventure.
Still curious how that would have gone.
Yeah, cause it's yeah. I'm interested to like see. I know like the scare zones were kind of divided into each island. So
Yeah,
that was definitely like a good idea on their part. Like it's to essentially every section of the park was its own scare zone. So
I
that
wonder
was
if
cool.
like I wonder if like the documentary that if you have seen what that in the Travel Channel thing showed it like how much of Iowa they recorded because they did a Howling Hornets documentary, but it was very much centered around uh, Islands of Adventure rather than the Universal event that we
Yeah,
know today.
yeah, exactly. I think it's because at the time it's like one of the. I think it's this is isn't this like one of the first years that they started like winning awards for it and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's probably why too. So they got like a little bit more like exposure on like a national scale.
yeah. I mean, it helps to bring tourism, more
Oh
tourism
yeah,
to
for sure.
Florida that we already need, but okay.
Yeah, but another great cool thing about HHN 12 is that it brought us a new icon, the caretaker, also known as Dr. Albert Kane, and he was kind of like a I would say almost like a Victorian serial killer, kind of like a Jack the Ripper type of thing.
Yeah, he was very much based around the Jack the Ripper personnel rather than just like a regular caretaker. But he was very cool. I thought he was cool, but he's definitely not my favorite icon. But he
Yeah,
was definitely
he's not my favorite
very
either, but he's up there. I would consider him either like my second or third favorite.
yeah.
Yes, I definitely like his design. I like the story behind him.
I did too.
Yeah. Um, but another cool thing too when it came to like the scare zones is like they were all kind of themed around the actual islands. Like for example, like in Marvel Superhero Island, the story there was that the villains actually defeated the heroes and they kind of took over the island. So like the whole scare zone was just full of Marvel villains.
Every Marvel or comic book fans wet dream. comic book.
A comic
That's it.
book.
That's a new way. Book. Yeah.
I would like to read
but
your comic book.
that's terrible. Don't do that. Um, but I thought it's very cool. It's every comic book nerd's wet dream to have
Yeah.
like the villains or have an actual event surrounding like the evil around Halloween Horror Nights with Marvel and
Yeah,
comics.
for sure. Plus, it kind of opened the door too for like that one year that they did a Marvel House. It was called like Maximum Carnage, I think it was, and it was actually based
Yeah.
around like Carnage, like the symbiote Carnage, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody that likes Venom now would have been all over that,
Oh yeah,
especially nowadays.
yeah. And then another cool thing too was, like the Jurassic Park area was actually like full of dinosaurs just running around,
They're
and it
very
had its
cool.
own house. It was called Evolution. I would have loved to see that house because of the whole dinosaur human hybrid thing, and
Yeah.
also because I'm being kind of a jerk about this one, but I would have loved to see the eviscerated Triceratops corpse that
This
they had.
what?
Yeah, like because remember how that area it was supposed to be by the area where the Triceratops encounter used to be.
Yeah.
So to like play around with that, they like messed up one of the Triceratops and made it look like it was like killed.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah,
What's
and
worse,
apparently it
the
was like
freaking dog or the depths of fear or that? I'm not even sure anymore.
and apparently it was like super like gory,
Oh,
and I'm like I
interesting.
would have loved to see that.
I'm
just to
pretty
like
sure they had a
see what they
scare
did.
actor just kind of eating its insides, like,
Yeah, something like that. It was
yeah.
pretty cool. And yeah, and the Lost Continent was actually called the Island of Lost Souls, and it was supposedly ruled by a demon, and it was called Nightmare.
Oh, very cool. I mean, it's pretty sure it's more like a hell type of environment with the atmosphere.
Yeah,
I kind of gives me like those fear vibes, but fear was not introduced yet. So,
yeah. That's I was thinking something like that too. But another thing too, actually, the caretaker was actually not supposed to be the icon for that year. It was supposed to be his daughter, Cindy.
oh,
But
she's
she
so
even had like a
cool. She's such a cool character. I just wish that she had a spotlight for once, but.
yeah.
Uh,
But like her story was gonna be different too, because she was gonna be like the main event there, and she was actually the lands like in IOA were actually supposed to be taken over by like her playthings. Like that was gonna be the original story and like the explanation for each one of the scare zones.
oh, that's
But
cool.
yeah, unfortunately they had to abandon that idea because of um, child abductions in that area at the time, which is
Oh,
not a fun time.
oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Which I get, because Orlando being a huge tourist area, which I'm pretty sure it opens up a lot of doors. I don't know how different it was back in the day, but with the whole sex trafficking situations
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that Orlando is such a big area where children are always running around, basically not just Universal, but Disney, SeaWorld.
Mm-hmm.
And I drive, like, there must have been, like, a lot of things that if it was so, like, crazy important that they had to abandon the idea, then I totally understand.
Exactly.
But let's move on to Halloween Horror
Yeah.
Nights 13.
Yes, so this was actually this is where another icon was introduced. One of my favorite icons, the director, otherwise known as Paulo Ravinsky. And his story I thought was really cool because he used to create snuff films,
Oh,
and
love that.
I don't know how, but somehow Universal was like, hey, do you want to make a horror film for us? Like we've seen your snuff films and those are pretty cool. You want to make a movie for us?
Well, that's a part of their backstory. It's
Look, he just
because
had a
they always try to like incorporate it with like something that has to do with the company, but it's
oh yeah.
very much mythological and like totally made up. But I like that idea that the fact that Universal also being a primary horror
Mm-hmm.
company, that they were able to incorporate that little bit of horror. That I mean, I guess a lot of horror films do have a lot of like. Not just censorships, but like a lot of things that are not ethical in a
Mm.
normal horror film. So they tried to make a character out of it, which I totally get it. Which I wouldn't be surprised if Paulo Ravinsky was actually European or German or whatever you may want to call it. Same
Well,
thing.
I think according to his story, he was supposed to be like, yeah, he was supposed to be of European descent.
Nice. I
Yeah,
would
I
think
think
German or Russian.
almost like Poland Romansky, like something like that, you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, like what I was gonna say too was, when he was hired by Universal, when they were looking at his stuff, they were like, man, this guy's got a killer demo reel.
Oh, fuck.
See,
Oh,
I
sorry.
just had to do it. No, that's fine.
I
Just we'll
dropped the
leave that
F
in.
bomb.
We'll leave that in. I already dropped an F bomb in the last episode, so we're good. But like the story behind this whole year too is all the islands were actually turned into like living horror films because he was like trying to fulfill like this huge like dream project of his.
It
And
just seems like they were trying to do the same thing as Cindy if they would have gotten with the idea, just to make it one big story with the scare
yeah.
zones. And instead of playthings, it's with horror films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually a lot of this was done too because at the time like IOA's attendance was like really really just low. For
Hmm.
some reason, people just weren't going to Islands of Adventure, so they actually held Horror Nights over here for a couple of years just to boost the attendance levels over there.
Yeah,
But
that totally
then,
makes sense.
yeah, but then because of that, the attendance in Universal Studios Orlando actually dropped because IOA was getting most of it.
Oh,
So it's just like
well,
it was just like one thing was outweighing the other.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's crazy because Islands of Adventure is a newer park,
Mm-hmm.
And you would think because it's a newer park, everybody prefers to be over there.
Yeah.
But then again, there is a lot of like rough rides. I mean, I don't think it even has to deal with that. It's
I think it
just
would
the
have
fact I
been.
don't.
I think it would
Yeah,
have also been like a fall season type of thing again too,
yeah,
or like the fall season's IOA's attendance was just like bad, so they were like, "Oh, we'll just bring some more people to IOA this way."
yeah. That's fair.
But I feel like they kind of tried to fix it for the next year for like HHN 14 because they actually did it at both parks for like at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that year they actually had like 7 houses. They had 4 scare zones, a show, and a parade. But weirdly enough, it was actually the first year that didn't have an icon since like 1999.
And this is where it all started when everything just went to crap. No, I'm kidding.
No.
And it didn't go to crap, but they just had so many icons like throughout the years that the fact that they didn't have one for that year was totally off-putting.
Yeah. But I think they kind of worked with it because like they did have another house like Horror Night Nightmares that actually featured all the past icons so far.
Okay,
So
so
I feel like they kind of made up for it a little bit.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody wanted to see their favorite icons,
Hmm.
regardless of not having an actual icon. But I feel like this is where the whole homage that they did to the past icons, like the first house that they actually had all the icons together, I believe.
Mm. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So that was I think like the biggest highlight of that year in terms of like new doing things that were different or new.
Yeah.
But then HHN 15, again, they used both parks for this one, but this time they kind of went all out with the story, I think, because that was the time where we actually got introduced to the storyteller, also known as Elsa. And she's
Let
kind of
it
the main.
go, let it go. I'm
No, not
kidding.
that Elsa. Not that Elsa.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Different,
I
different
know.
Elsa.
I had to throw it in there.
But that made me laugh. Because now I'm over here thinking of like how can I say do you want to build a snowman but like make it horror? I was like, do you want to kill a something man?
No, do you want to build a story?
The storyteller here was actually introduced to be like the main icon of the park or of the event, but weirdly enough, like they had her as the main icon, but then the story behind it was that she was telling us the story of Terra Cruentus,
Yes.
which was supposed to be like this dark, almost like mythological realm
Yeah.
that was like a mix of like ancient and modern myths, and kind of similar to what they did with Jack for HHN 10. All like the scare zones and the maces in the show were actually like one part of like they were all part of one big story revolved around the Terror Queen.
Which is the really another big rumor that happened to be going around for this year, or what
Yeah,
was
it would have
supposed to
been.
be this year.
Yeah, it would have been really cool to see her come back.
What's
As
crazy
someone.
is that the tribute store had the Scare Zone shirts, which I went ahead and bought because I couldn't resist,
Mm-hmm.
and the actual shirt has the Terror Queen and every other icon, but Scare Zone wise, because the Terror Queen was mostly like showcased in a
Yeah,
Scare Zone rather than a house.
yeah, she was almost like it was her stuff like almost ran like a show, kind of like the Carnage Returns for like
Yes.
25, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. But they did have like really like one super interesting concept for a house in here. It was called Terra Mines, and it used to be in like the Poseidon attraction. And what was cool about it was that like every 10th guest on it was actually given a helmet, almost like a exploring helmet with like a light on the top.
Yeah.
But it would actually interact like with the maze. Like let's say you're like in a certain part of the maze and like something happens in the house, and maybe your lights would go off or like they would change color or something like that. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
a pretty cool idea.
I wish they would still do that with the Howling Hornets nowadays, but it's just
Hmm.
too many. Their attendance is just so big that wouldn't be
Yeah,
able
it's
to
just
do
hard to
that
do it
idea
now. Yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, but the best year considered in fans' eyes was Howling Horror Nights 16, which is the
good
Sweet
old Sweet
16.
16. That was actually my first exposure to Horror Nights.
Yeah, for me it was when I was seeing the commercials all over Burger King, and I think I just recently moved to Florida from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's actually how it
Um,
was for me too.
Yeah, I was just like, what is this? And then you
Because
just see the
I,
creepy like posters of the
yeah,
storyteller with Jack and everybody else, and there's this really big cake with like Sweet 16 with a bunch of candles. I was like, oh, dude, this looks creepy, but I want to
yeah.
go.
Yeah, I remember. Like, it's funny enough. Like, I think like the first time I ever saw something like that, I was actually at Walmart, and I remember seeing like the like a 12 pack of Coke that had like their faces on it, and I
Oh,
was
that's
like,
so cool.
"What is that?" Like, I had to stop, and I was like, "Oh my god, that looks so cool."
I wonder like if people still have those Coke cans, like if they know, but I highly doubt. But I'm pretty sure people have pictures of him.
Some, and
But
I'm
if
sure
somebody
some
does,
people have saved them because like I remember for a while I had actually saved a Coke. I think it was either a Coke or a Pepsi bottle from when Star Wars Episode 3 came out.
dang.
Like I never opened it. I just held on to
Oh God. You want to
it.
drink it now?
No, I don't think I don't think it's gonna be good. It's not like wine. It doesn't age.
All right. So in Howling Hornet 16, they actually brought back all the popular houses from the years past, which
Yeah,
was like things with Jack. But I think that was also the year that they had premiered. Knowing Jack's story, they had premiered Psychoscarapy, which was one of the better houses of that year.
yeah. I think that's like one of the first houses that they use like other levels of immersion when it came to like smells and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I
And they also
remember.
had brought back a psychopath maze
Yeah,
from of course, the movie Psycho.
yep. Yeah, and it was crazy because that was like their first like big anniversary year because they brought back all the icons for it too.
A Sweet 16, which is very odd because it's kind of like one big party. Like like in Puerto Rico, we have quinceañeras. In America,
Yeah,
we have Sweet 16s.
and that's Horror Nights' version of it. and then uh, and then we move on to HHN 17. This is kind of where they started mixing like the original concepts um, with the IPs, with getting a lot of IPs in. Because
Yeah.
this is the one that was known as the Carnival of Carnage. It was Jack was back as like the main icon for it, but the definitely like the biggest change to it was that Universal was able to sign a contract with New Line Cinema, and they were actually able to bring in Jason, Freddy, and Leatherface to like Horror Nights.
Wow, that's actually really interesting because we don't really see Michael Myers until a little bit later on into the
Yeah,
event, but Jason, Freddy, and Leatherface have always continued throughout the years of Halloween Horror Nights for like, yeah, I feel like for even more years to come
mm-hmm.
because we had Jason versus Freddy in another year, then we had
Yep.
the Leatherface house in Halloween Horror Nights 26, and I'm pretty sure before 26, but I can't really pinpoint it in my head right now.
Mm. Yeah, because yeah, not only that, they actually brought in like other IPs too, because they brought in Dead Silence to kind of advertise it a little bit, which
Yeah,
was I honestly would have loved to see that because I love Dead Silence. It's a really
yeah, me
I love
too.
that movie, and I would have loved to see the house on that. And they also brought in The Thing, another
Oh,
great
I'm pretty
horror
sure it's
movie.
the 1980s one, or I think it was the
If I'm not
70s.
I no if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, it was actually almost like a sequel to the '82 version where you're like going into the facility like to the outpost like after everything went down,
yeah.
which still like it's really cool because it's almost like it's like adding another dimension to the story of the thing.
Yeah, for me, I think the story of the thing really reminds me of the video game Dead Space, which
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know why. So
well
I'm just like, this is very
Dead Space was like heavily influenced by the thing
the
and like Alien and stuff like that.
instead of being freezing your ass off, you're already in space where no one can hear you. Wait, wrong movie.
Uh-huh. And in this year they also kind of expanded on Jack's like story because in here he's actually able to find his old boss Dr. Oddfellow and kills him and takes over as ringmaster of the new carnival, and that's when he kind of travels around to find new acts for his show, and that's where he comes, he finds Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface, and he's able to add them to his Carnival of Carnage.
Very cool. I love that side of the story of Jack because you really see him like come to the throne as the
Hmm.
king of horror nights in that year.
Yeah, it's crazy how they come up with like these like a whole character arc She's like
Yeah, I
the
feel
crazy
like Jack
story.
has a lot more than
Some of the other
other
icons.
icons.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, it's their baby. It's their pride and joy. Let them be
exactly.
happy.
And then now we're moving on to HHN 18. That one's Reflections of Fear. That was the year that they introduced Bloody Mary. So what was cool about this one was it was an existing, like legend, Bloody Mary. But what Universal did with it was create a backstory for her and to like how she became Bloody Mary, which I thought was pretty cool.
I heard that they also like she already had a backstory, but they decided to do their own twist on it. Of course,
Mm,
due to copyright reasons, but
yeah,
Bloody Mary is a story that anybody can use because it's over like what it's like over copyright reasons and all
yeah,
this stuff. But
exactly.
it's more like, but they wanted to do their own twist on it since, mind you, that a lot of Howling Horror Nights characters are taken in a more modern twist rather than
Hmm.
they have a very vintage side to them, but they are very much existing in our modern world.
Yeah. What I did like about that year too was the whole Bloody Mary thing was kind of like the whole backdrop for the whole rest of the event because almost everything to do with the event itself had to do with like myths and legends and like urban
Yeah,
legends and stuff like that, which I thought was a really cool like way to connect everything.
yeah. I genuinely enjoy her backstory, especially
Mm-hmm.
being her name was actually Dr. Mary Agana.
Yep.
In 1958, she was a psychiatrist who performed experiments on her patients by using their phobias and fears, which is what stories are used. So you can train your children and to not be bad, but
Mm-hmm.
you also give them the type of fears that you tell them through stories. With each case, Mary's insanity took over as she killed her patients from attempting to cure them. So that was a pretty
Yeah.
intense backstory.
She kind of took a 180 there and kind of became a crazy person herself, you know.
Well, she actually became the ruler of evil legends.
Ah, look at that. And yeah, I think for me, 18 always holds a special place in my heart because that was my first ever HHN.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, like
That would have
I
been
still
cool.
remember a lot of it to this day because like it was right around that the year before I had turned 13, and I remember seeing everywhere on the advertisements like, oh, this is now recommended for children under 13. So I'm like, oh, I'm 13 now. Now's my chance to go.
Yeah.
Like now I'm old enough to do this, and I was like, this is
What's
crazy.
crazy is that it says that you have to be 13 years older to like recommended. But
Yeah,
all of us took it literal that we have to
yeah.
be 13 years or
We
older to attend. Like
yeah,
that's
for
what
some reason
happened
we
to
thought
me. I was like, why?
yeah we thought it was like we were going to the movies and you couldn't see this movie because you were 13. It was a PG-13 movie. You weren't allowed to go in.
It reminds me, I mean, a little bit off topic here, but it reminds me of the time that very last Saw movie came out, and I was like, what, 15 or 16, and it was a rated R movie, but then, like, the concessionist, the little concession person,
Hmm.
was like, I know you're not old enough, but I'm pretty sure you guys are a fan of this movie, so here you go. So I went to see Saw at
It's
like
like
15 or
otherwise,
16.
it's like otherwise you wouldn't be here watching Saw 7.
Yeah, exactly. So it just kind of reminded me of that time where I could have gone to Howling Horror Nights at a younger age.
Mm.
But did I? Absolutely not. But I wish I did. But,
Yeah, I was like, I wanted originally I was gonna go to 17, but like I stepped away because I was like maybe this is too much for me to handle right now. Maybe I was
I
like
was
maybe it's I don't know what it's gonna be like. So I was like let me wait another year and see.
So this next year is Halloween Horror Nights 19, which was my first year. It was ripped from the silver screen. And this was when the usher, Julian Browning, was introduced. And he also has a very similar theming to the director.
Yep.
But instead of him making movies, he actually works for the Universal Palace Theater in the backstory, of course, and he haunts and cares for the theater and attacks victims for not showing proper etiquette for watching a movie.
So then this year too was like one of those big IP heavy years because they brought in the Wolfman, like the Benicio del Toro version of it. They also brought in Chucky to Orlando for the first time, and they also brought in Saw. And Yeah, because Chucky had like a whole thing going on in Hollywood where he had like his little like room of insults or something. It was similar to what we had for 28 this last couple of years.
Yeah, I remember that. But I think I don't know if it was even Saw's first year that was being featured, but I could be wrong.
No, I think
And
it
the reason
was.
why I say that is because I do remember Reflections of Fear, like the lineup, but I'm not too sure if Saw was there. If not, then that was probably the first year it was featured. Because I do remember going through the Saw house, which was also the year that they featured original houses like Leave It to Cleaver
Oh yeah,
and
that was
that
ripped. Yeah, that was ripped from the silver screen.
yeah, and
Which
it
is why
was.
it's yeah, it's actually from the ones that I've been to, it's probably still my favorite HHN.
I mean, it's my one of my first, but it's definitely not my absolute favorite year from me going.
Hmm.
But it's one of those things where Leave It to Cleaver scared the ever living shit out of me. But
Yeah.
going back to Saw was like I remember going through the house, and the one thing that was disgusting to me, but it was of course imprinted in my head was the scene where the girl's tied up to the chair and her pigtails are tied to the
Oh, the
machine and
scalper.
it
Yeah.
pulls up. Oh God.
Yeah.
I had a dream that that happened to me. I was like, oh, I'm scarred for life, but
Yeah, I have like
I
really good
totally
memories
get that.
of that whole year because I remember the
Yeah.
first house we did that one year was actually Leave It to Cleaver, and I remember just loving the heck out of that house and like my specific memory from it was this one time we were like walking through one of the scenes, and one of the characters shows up and he's like, "Do you want to learn how to make the pepperoni?" And he smacks us out of like this tank. He's like, "You're the pepperoni."
Oh, dang. I think Leave It to Cleaver was the house that scared the ever living shit out of me, as I mentioned. But
Hmm.
that one year, there was this girl. It was like a room where there was the girl with this mask on, and she was up on a stage. But she ducked down to me, put her cleaver to my neck, and was like pretending to slice it. And ever since then, I was like, wow, people don't respect PDA. That's fine, okay.
Six
Like,
feet.
this is too much. 6 feet, what? 6 feet, no longer applicable. Like,
No.
it's just no. It's absolutely terrible, but I did love that year, and it made me want to come to Howling Horror Nights for many years to come. Very
Hmm.
scared, but many years to come.
That's how it was for me too. And but moving on, we do have another big anniversary year. We have HHN 20, otherwise known as 20 Years of Fear.
Yes.
And in this one, all the icons came back. Fear was like the main icon because you have nothing to fear but fear itself was like their big tagline.
Yeah, I remember
And
that tagline.
yeah, I remember too that one scare zone. I think it was it the Sunset Boulevard area, like where they used to have the Terminator show.
Yeah.
That you could see all the icons there. It was really cool because you would
It
meet the
was actually
icons.
near. It was actually near the Mel's
It was, oh yeah,
diner.
that's right. It was yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. It was
it
near
was more towards the front of where it used to
the
be
Maple show.
the parade entrance.
Hmm.
Yeah, so right. Well, it's
Yeah,
still the parade entrance, but
yeah, and it's cool because like they kind of expanded upon the other icon stories too. Because like when Fear came, he like made them like his heralds, and each one of them like represented a different aspect of horror. Like Jack was chaos. The caretaker was death, and almost like the four horsemen of the apocalypse type of thing,
no, yeah, that's
which was
actually a
pretty
really
cool.
cool thing to expand about.
Yeah, and then the another cool thing about it too was Cindy, the caretaker's daughter, was finally kind of brought up to the forefront, and she even had her own house that year. It was called the Orphanage,
Oh, that's
which
so cool.
I distinctly remember that house too because I remember kind of being freaked out by it because the whole like creepy kid thing at the time really scared me.
Yeah, I
And like
love
that was
that.
literally that whole house was creepy kid central. So I was like, oh god.
I wonder if like from the title because I don't remember if I went to this house or not. I probably did, but I just don't remember it that much. If like the in like the way of an orphanage, like was Cindy an orphan? Because she wouldn't have been an orphan if like she was the caretaker's daughter and they were somehow both alive. Well, not
Yeah,
alive, but living.
yeah. I don't know. I don't remember like the actual like backstory of that house. I
Yeah.
just remember it was just creepy to me.
Uh, well,
Yeah.
that's fair. I also know that I think that was also the year that they featured the school, or was it another year? I
I
forgot.
think that was either 18 or 19, but I remember the
18
school.
or
Yeah.
19. Yeah, the school.
Oh man, I remember that. Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite scare zones.
So cool.
Yeah,
It's just all the children, just all creepiness. It's
it was.
fine.
Yeah, it's funny enough. It was kind of like a pre trick or treat scare zone.
Yeah,
It was
absolutely. I
similar. It
mean,
was like really similar to
what's Halloween without trick or treaters trying to kill the ever living crap out of you? Facts.
that.
So
Yep.
we are moving on to Howling Horror Nights 21. I really hate talking about this year, but it was the year that Lady Luck was introduced. She was kind of like this, basically a blackjack, or like the person who basically plays with you in Las Vegas, and it's all about luck and chance. And she transformed from this sexy vixen with like green dress, all pretty, all redhead, and then all of a sudden she turns into a predator. Which either way, with your experience at Halloween Horror Nights, each house was represented by the theme of luck and chance. Whether you win or lose, you still lose either way. You lose
Yeah.
your head, you get killed either way, and
Moral
it
of the
marked.
story is don't gamble.
Oh, that's a given, but I'm pretty sure many people do anyway. But it's fine. I mean, no harsh judgment here, but just don't gamble at Halloween Horror Nights.
That exactly. Yeah, don't gamble at Halloween Horror Nights. You can gamble anywhere else. Just don't do it at Horror Nights.
And that
That
was
was like
also the year that it marked the end of the Icon era, ending at 13 year streak. The only thing
do,
that I didn't like about Lady Luck was that she did not, of course, her house and like her scare zones very much represented the theme, but she didn't
mhm.
have like a house per se. It was just, you know, that alleyway that's near Mummy, that's like the New York area ish.
Yeah.
It was her scare zone was in between the alleyways,
Oh
uh,
wow. Actually,
which
that
was,
reminds me of like 19 because I remember like the I went to 19 kind of late, like late in its like runtime,
yeah.
and I remember there was a map that came out around that time that had a scare zone that wasn't there earlier, and it was in that alleyway, and that whole scare zone was just the icons at the time because it was like a
Oh, that's
teaser of
cool.
20.
Oh, that's cool.
Just I completely forgot about that.
I wish I actually knew about it. I feel like I went like mid, like beginning of October, like mid, like
Mm,
beginning to mid October, and normally they start putting out those last minute things like
yeah.
towards the end of the event. But yeah, like Lady Luck had her own little scare zone through that alleyway, and it wasn't that good. The masks were terrible. I'm sorry, Patrick, if you're listening. But like, it's one of those things where like, I don't know, like she did not stick out to me, and I mean, I wish they had expanded more on her story
Yeah.
rather than just slapping on another icon after the amazing year of 20 Years of Fear. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Um, what I'm curious to know is if um, when they did, when they finished that streak, I wonder if they did it on purpose, to end the 13-year streak
Yeah,
of
that's what
Lucky
I
Number
was
13,
thinking.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that they didn't do something like that for year 13, actually. But,
Hmm.
it could be just a mere coincidence, or
Well, I think
that
I
they.
think it might have been like the whole like luck thing because it's HHN 21, so you don't want to get past 21 in blackjack. Lady
Yeah,
Luck, 13 years of bad luck type of thing. But
interesting.
I unfortunately cannot really say a lot about 21 because full disclosure here, I actually did not go to 21. I was a little, also I was a little bastard that year in high school. And I got myself grounded, so my punishment was not getting to go to Halloween Horror Nights that year.
No, man, you had to do it during Horror Nights. Come
Yeah,
on now.
I had that like uncanny ability to always get in trouble around like something that I really wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, at least you're going now. You're going
Yeah,
now. That's the most important
I'm
part.
going strong now.
All right, so we are moving on to like Howling Horror Nights 22 and so on that were not so great, but I'm still going to talk about them. Uh, in Howling Horror Nights 22, they had finally expanded Howling Horror Nights to Universal Studios Japan,
Woohoo!
which it just creates their, I think that was their three the three-way chain of Howling Horror Nights. Now, I don't know when they actually expanded it to Singapore, but I'm pretty sure that was a little bit later
I
on.
think Singapore would have been like 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Probably, or we'll confirm that later.
Yeah.
But with they dropped the icon concept as we talked about from the
Hmm.
earlier event, but they also started concentrating on video game house concept of Silent Hill, and this is when they started bringing musicians onto the events such as Alice Cooper, which I do remember that house, and it was amazing.
Oh
And then they
yes, I love
had
that
like
house.
a type of Universal Classic Monsters house, but it wasn't like fully complete like we had it last year.
Hmm.
And also, of course, the awful and I mean, it's not awful. It's not awful, but it was the first year of The Walking Dead. The first year was fine, but then it just prolonged and prolonged. Then we'll talk about that later.
The
And this
Walking
is
Dead era.
oh god. But they also dropped the scare zone concept for street experiences, which basically they were trying out the whole Busch Gardens concept where they just let their scare actors roam free. But I did hear that the problem with that is that there were too many scare actors crowding on one area rather than dispersing to make it
Yeah.
more
So
immersive.
then, like, yeah, you would get like sections of the park where there was nothing there.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden
Nothing.
you would
Yeah.
get scared. So they just wanted that, and that year was just not well received at all,
Yeah.
which was absolutely terrible.
Which kind of
But
sucks because a lot of the houses that year were really good. Like specifically like Silent Hill and Alice Cooper. Like the first year that they did Walking Dead house was pretty good. I thought, in my opinion.
yeah, was that the year that they you had to like crouch down? I really liked that one. That's the only year I really liked The Walking Dead,
I don't remember
where
if
you
it
had
was
to like
that one or
crouch
yeah.
down or like I think it was the second year
Mm.
of maybe like I'll take it back for the first 2 years, but then after that
Yeah.
I still get sick of The Walking Dead.
Mm.
But in Howling Hornets 23, they didn't learn from 22, so they kept their stupid concept. I'm sorry, Universal Creative Team, but it's an opinion. It's an opinion. But it was very much centered around the zombie concept of The Walking Dead with their collaboration with AMC. And it was a very zombie heavy event where it was zombies, scare zones, zombie houses, or at least most of them. But they did have some amazing houses such as Resident Evil, Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead, and American Werewolf in London, and of course, to be mentioned again, The Walking Dead.
Yeah, house-wise, that was a really strong year. At least like Cabin in the Woods and Evil Dead are like up there. My favorite houses, like in general, not just like for that year.
Yeah. My dad was geeking the entire time because he loves the Evil Dead series and
Mm,
basically the movies and anything series related to it. So it definitely was a good year for them, at
yeah.
least. And now we move on to Howling Hornets 24, which gives us a little bit to talk about. It is the return of the original scare zone. So they dropped the
Yes.
whole roaming of zombies, roaming free, and
Yes.
it's now back to the scare zones that we know today. And they had original concepts for houses this year as well. And The Walking Dead, on their third year in a row, had the longest house constructed at the time, which is crazy to me because there was somehow like Howling Horror Nights where like the Walking Dead house was like super long, never
Yeah.
ending.
I remember actually. I do remember that house being relatively long because I remember it started off at the prison. You would go out to the woods. You would end up in the store. Then you go back out to the woods, and then you like go to Alexandria. Like it was like a whole. Because it took like I think it took like 2 seasons worth to like make it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that it was also the one that you also ended up somehow outside, and I was just like, oh, what is
Oh yeah,
this?
that's right.
Like,
Yeah, that's the one that
what the
ended up outside.
hecky?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a pretty strong year, but I was kind of getting tired of the Walking Dead
Oh yeah.
concept at
I
this
think
point. I
everybody
was
was
like,
at that point.
nope, it's like too much. But then it also featured houses from Dusk Till Dawn, and that house, even though I know it's a comedy horror, it scared the ever living shit out of me. I was like, why is this so scary to me?
Funny
And
enough,
all,
for me, a
yep,
lot of the houses that year I didn't really enjoy that much. There was like a couple of them that I liked. Like I did like
yeah,
AVP and I liked Halloween, but there were some that I just like, they weren't great, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Mhm. But I mean, I get you. But they did have some pretty good um like houses that year because mind you, like I said, this was the original concepts for houses came back and they only had like a couple of IPs. I think only three or four. Yeah, four
Yeah.
because of Walking Dead, From Dusk Till Dawn, Alien versus Predator, and Halloween, which I'm pretty sure I don't think that was the first time Halloween has appeared, but I could be wrong. It could be the first year
I think it was the first year that they had a house.
for Halloween.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we go to the iconic year
Oh
of
yes.
Howling Horror Nights 25, which is 25 years of monster and mayhem. It hinted the year before with a recap telling all the fans thank you as you see Jack flash across the screen at the end, which made me super excited for what was to come the next year.
Yeah, and then you had that commercial that came out in May of 2015 where Jack is like walking towards the camera and you hear like the pop goes the Weasel music box.
Yeah, and I think that's when they also like released a couple of more with like Chance featured with her new outfit, looking
Yep.
slaying as usual, and then also a little bit of that recap show that you do see at the stage of the it was like a type of version of Carnival of Carnage, right?
Yeah.
Almost a retelling, but it was with him taking over as the actual ringmaster, and it's
Yeah.
cool. It
And
did
then
feature nine houses. It was The Walking Dead, Jason versus Freddy, The Purge, American Werewolf in London again, 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem, Insidious, Run, Body Collectors, and Asylum in Wonderland 3D.
so yeah, this year lineup wise, it had a really strong lineup of houses.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, Specifically for me, the ones that I really enjoyed were Freddy vs. Jason, um, obviously 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem, and Body Collectors. Like those were probably my top three of that year.
I don't remember Body Collectors, but I'm pretty sure it's
Oh,
based
Body
around
Collectors.
the story of Jack and everybody else.
Yeah,
Like,
because it was set in Shady Brook, but like during a winter storm, so you were kind of trapped inside during the winter storms.
so cool. Oh God, I want to remember it so bad. It's too bad that Universal. Well, which I get it. It's too bad that you can't record inside of these houses because I would have
Yeah.
liked to see it. It's one of those years that where you do have to buy the frequent fear to really understand what's going on because this was like in Halloween Horror Nights, I only went once a year, and I didn't start buying the frequent fear until Halloween Horror Nights 27.
Ooh.
So I was never, I was only like a one night thing and try to remember everything I could. But there were houses that did stick out to me as I was talking about them from years past. But it's very hard to remember them as much as I remember the other years
Yeah.
beyond 27.
Yeah, I remember I always used to do, and I still do the Rush of Fear, just because like those first 3 weekends are always the best when it comes to like lines.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's always. I mean, I like September, but I sometimes go in October. You know, whenever I feel like I need my dose of adrenaline, and getting the shit scared out of me. So it's good. And
Mhm.
that year, also the icons return once again for a scare zone, such as
Yes.
Eddie, everybody else. You know,
Yeah, and it's
fun
cool because like some of
icon
them,
things.
so yeah, especially because Run was kind of like Eddie finally kind of had his own house.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for the year that Eddie gets an icon. Like
Yeah,
he is very much honored this year. Still hasn't become an icon.
I definitely
Very
think he
weird.
should become one at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, probably not for 30, but probably
No, no, I mean
beyond
like at
that.
some point. Yeah, probably like
Yeah.
the next year after that. Yeah. Be cool to have him.
So another year that I love, but this is just me. It's not everybody's favorite. I discussed it with the Howling Horror Nights community. My favorite year was a direct sequel from 25, and it was You Won't Stand a Chance. And the icon was not other than Chance herself. She was the right hand woman to Jack, basically the Harlequin of horror, while he is basically like a horror version of Joker. And she just basically helped torture people in shows in Halloween Horror Nights 17 and in 25, of course, with Carnival of Carnage. But in the story, Chance does get caught and locked away in an asylum, and Jack gets put back in the box. While locked away, Chance enters the theater of her mind, and she just lets her insanity go crazy. That was the year that the another 3D house was featured with Lunatic's Playground, which is Chance's house. Halloween again, The Exorcist, which was an amazing house. Like, let me tell you, it was absolutely detailed. Like, you guys wanted an Exorcist house, they gave it to you this year. And of course, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the first time we get another IP with a TV series, American Horror Story, and The Walking Dead.
Which was its last year, I believe.
Oh, thank God. I was like, yes, thank you. Like, it was just too much Walking Dead. 5 years in a row. That's too much.
Yeah.
But then this is also the year that Purge started to come out exactly like The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
It was, well, not 5 years. I feel like they did it for 3 or 4 years, but it was
But
like
still, it was too
dispersed
much.
between, oh yeah, it was dispersed between like Scare Zone and House. It
Mm-hmm.
was very it's just, I mean, I love the Purge series. Don't get me wrong. I prefer it over The Walking Dead, but it was like, okay, don't go Walking Dead level, please.
Yeah.
This is awful. It's just absolutely awful. But the only thing that I do have to mention is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house happened to be really short. And I went through that house, like, it flew by so quick that I felt like there was only like 6 rooms in that house, or
Hmm.
maybe a little bit more, but they typically try to do anywhere from 10 to 13 rooms.
Yeah, 26 is another one of those that at the time, I didn't go for personal reasons.
Stop getting in trouble.
I didn't get in trouble. I was going through some personal issues at the time. That's why I
Oh,
didn't
I
go.
know, I know, but that's still getting in trouble in some way, shape, or form.
That's true.
Yeah,
But
but this was
I came
also
back
the.
though.
Yes, you came
I came
back.
back with like a vengeance for 27
Oh yeah, absolutely. You went all out for 27.
though.
And one more thing I will comment about Chance's year, because I can talk about Chance's year literally all hours of the day. But Lunatic's Playground, I did not enjoy that house, but I feel like it was still incorporated very well, especially with the state of her mind through
Hmm.
her insanity, which is why I believe it's such a fitting theme to her. I mean, not only did she have a house, she had a scare zone to make up for the flaws that the house didn't have. So Yussef came back strong in Howling Horror Nights 27.
I certainly did. That was actually one of my favorite years. 27. Um, they kind of dropped the icon concept again, but I feel like they kind of made up for it with like really strong scare zones and really great houses that year. Because like everybody remembers and everybody still loves and gushes about the Trick or Treat scare zone,
Oh,
and I don't blame
yes.
them because that scare zone was amazing.
For being such a short scare zone, I agree.
Yeah. It's also like one of those like places too where like usually the scare zones in that area tend to do quite well because
You
like
think so?
I think so because you had Trick or Treat and then the year after that you had Twisted Traditions, and like I feel like both of those houses or both those scare
Oh,
zones
yep,
did really well.
yep. I agree with that. I'll agree with that.
But like house wise, you had like a really good amount of houses. Like you had The Shining, you had Saw, you had American Horror Story for a second time, you had Ash versus Evil Dead, Scarecrow the Reaping, Hive, The Fallen, and Dead Waters. So there was a
Yeah.
lot. I feel like there was a lot of like uniqueness to a lot of the houses because they were all so different from the other ones, like from each other.
hmm But basically, Scarecrow literally scared the crap out of everyone, and I'm pretty sure it deserved Best House last
Oh
year
yeah,
because
it
it
definitely
was
did.
definitely the most claustrophobic,
Mm-hmm.
the most scariest, the loudest freaking house
Oh yeah.
ever. But it was literally like that taste of horror, of Halloween horror that we were waiting for. It was had like, sorry to say, but the Halloween aesthetic, and it was just very lore like, very
Oh yeah.
Halloween feel to it, rather
Very
than just a
yeah.
horror strong house.
It was very much like the autumn and Halloween like feel to it.
Yeah, it was just basically what could go wrong on Halloween?
Yeah.
Scarecrow. That's what.
Plus, like the whole facade to that house is just so impressive with like the cornstalk and the entrance to the farm and stuff.
Yeah, do you want to talk about why that happened to do well, and especially the location of the house?
Yes.
Because
So
apparently to you, that's like the thing.
yeah. So in my opinion, that sprung tent. I think it's cursed because the houses that I found the most entertaining and the most scary have always been located in that area. And I feel like for
Which
me
is
that kind of
basically
started.
the one next to Men in Black, but it's not the one
Yes.
directly behind it. It's the one behind the tent behind it, which is
Yeah, I would
yeah,
say closer to like the Simpsons area,
yeah,
like facing the Simpsons, because like they had they've always had like such strong houses there. At least like in my opinion, because they had like La Llorona that one year.
yeah.
Then they had Scarecrow the Reaping, and then they did Dead Exposure Patient Zero, and then they did Nightingales, and like straight up, those are some of my favorite houses.
Yeah, I agree. Another house that did scare me that year was Hive. Hive somehow in the beginning of the season it wasn't that strong, but
Yeah, I
like
remember
towards
that.
the
Yeah.
end of the scare zone, like the scare at the end of the basically the haunting season, like the Hive scared the ever living crap out of me. So
See, I have very fond memories of the Hive because when like I think like the second or third time that I went on that house, I had family visiting from Puerto Rico
nice.
because they wanted to come to the event, and they were like, "Oh yeah, let's go to this house." And I remember just laughing so hard like all throughout that house because my family members were using me as a meat shield.
Oh, nice.
So like every time a scare actor would pop up, they would straight up like grab me by the shoulders and move me towards the scare actor so they wouldn't have to look at them.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was just laughing the entire time because I was just having so much fun.
I agree. I mean, it's one of those years that even though it didn't have a house or not a house, it didn't have an icon, it did very well.
Oh yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, and of course, that was also the one year that like, after many years, it was the last time we saw Bill and Ted
Stay excellent, my dudes.
and Party
Rip.
On.
But we did not talk about this. But in Howling Hornets 26 was when Academy of Villains was featured. Their
Was
first
that
year,
26 or was
it
that
was
25?
26. It was 26.
Because I remember no, that was 27. Because I remember
No,
seeing
it was
them.
26.
Really?
It was 26.
Because I remember
Because you
27 was like that one year that they had like the temporary
n-
stage because of the hurricanes.
nope, nope.
Yeah, I
You're
was there because I
wrong.
saw it.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You didn't go 26. Stop. Don't even, you can't even talk. You can't talk.
I can talk if I want to.
No, absolutely not. Anyway, in year 26, Academy of Villains did think the thing was called House of Terrors or House of Horrors. It was basically an asylum based show, but then they did come back for 27, which is when they had the temporary stage from because of Hurricane Irma or Matthew. I think it was.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was
There's too many of
definitely.
these.
I think it was definitely Hurricane Irma, and then because they called it the Irma Show, and
Mm,
then in year 28 was the Cyberpunk, and 29 was the Altered States.
yes, that's right.
Yeah. So then that took over basically what would have been Bill and Ted, and then we go to year 28, which ran for
Yes,
36 nights, and this is when Universal started to touch their slasher roots with the 80s theming,
for sure.
and
Yeah, like this is when they went kind of all out with like the whole '80s theme.
and this is when I'm starting to wonder if Universal had signed a contract. Remember that they had a contract with AMC, they had a contract with FX, and now they have a contract with Netflix to bring Stranger Things.
Oh yeah, and it kind of leads into that speculation that we were gonna get a house of like a Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, for
What
this,
they call it,
what would have been this year.
yeah,
And this was also the year that they had 10 houses for the first time.
yeah, yep.
And they had Trick or Treat, Halloween 4, Poltergeist, and Dead Exposure, which is one of the major houses that made a huge impact that year. And my favorite ones was Poltergeist. Poltergeist was
Oh,
super
Poltergeist was
detailed,
so good.
super claustrophobic, but it was definitely one of the. You felt like you were in an 80s film of a poltergeist being cursed in a house, and it was very cold in the beginning of that
Oh,
house.
with
Oh my
like the
gosh,
rain
I
and
was
everything. Yeah, like the rain
always
effects.
cold.
Yeah.
Yes, I
But
was
it was always
always
nice,
cold.
especially like in those like first couple days. I was like super hot and humid. You'd walk in, you're like, oh, this is so nice.
That's Florida in
That's
general.
yeah, it's at Florida for you. Yeah. But we can't forget that was also the first like year that we had like Stranger Things. Definitely like a fan favorite, Slaughter Cinema.
Yes, Slaughter Cinema.
Slaughter
Oh my
Cinema
gosh.
was, oh man, that one was such a fun house.
Yeah, especially if you're like huge like film and television geeks like us.
Yeah.
We love budgeted films and sad. I mean, I'm pretty sure Yusef loves them more than me because he has awful taste in movies anyway.
Wow.
But like Slaughter Cinema was one of those B movies that I would have loved to watch, especially if there were horror and just all the
Shit.
horror comedy. And I just
Shitty's
enjoyed that house
Kids.
so much. Shitty's Kids.
Shitty's Kids. That was my favorite one.
I forgot what was the sorority one.
Wasn't it like?
I really liked that
Oh
one.
yeah, like sorority sacrifice or something like that.
Yeah, sorority sacrifice. Oh my gosh,
I remember
Shitty's
it.
Kids also like the pumpkin guts. Pumpkin guts. I love
Pumpkin
pumpkin
Guts was
guts.
so cool. Yeah.
Eh.
I remember too. Me and a couple of my friends, we would keep joking around about that house, and we would actually, right, just randomly in the middle of conversations, just be like, "Daddy."
Oh no! Stop. That's some kink shit at that point. Gross.
Hey, hey, calm down over there.
No, that's you.
That's reverse psychology, okay?
Wow. And now, and finally, we are till last year. Unfortunately, our last year of Halloween Horror Nights for now. Halloween
Yes,
Horror Nights 29, which was an amazing year, in my opinion.
it was. It was a great year.
Um, it was, I mean, it had a lot of colors this year. The Blinky Cups were super popular, especially with all the IPs.
Yes, the Blinky Cups.
Universal finally touched in there with their roots of their where they actually came from with the Universal monsters, and it was a big hit, especially bringing movies like Us and Ghostbusters, and of course bringing back Stranger Things.
And giving everybody a Killer Clown's house, especially after the success that was at Scare Zone the year before.
Oh, and even more, they decided to go back to what was the music style of basically Alice
Yes.
Cooper, which was Rob Zombie, and his Scare Zone, uh, Hellbilly Deluxe, I think it's
Yeah,
called, or it
Hellbilly
was
Deluxe.
Hellbilly Deluxe, and House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yes.
It was that last year was like so amazing. The
Yeah.
only thing that I will complain about is the scare zones of well, I started to appreciate it more as I started to really read into it, but it was like Depths of Fear, or was it, well, yeah, it was Depths of Fear, right, which with the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fish ones were awful.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was like that
cheesy,
was probably
but
my least favorite house.
yeah, it was like my least favorite house. But Nightingale scared the ever living crap out of me, and so did Graveyard Games.
Oh,
Graveyard Games
Graveyard
had
Games. Oh my
amazing
god.
like
I love Graveyard
backstory,
Games. Yeah.
and
Now, for me, this is an. I guess this would be considered an unpopular opinion. I did not really like Killer Clowns.
well, I thought it was a fun house, but it wasn't like
It wasn't
amazing.
even. It was just like, I was kind of bored, honestly.
I thought it
Like,
was just fun. It was just this little fun little uh, clown house. I thought that was.
I feel like I enjoyed like in terms of like the horror comedy, not so scary house. I feel like Ghostbusters was so much better.
Oh, absolutely. And going off of that, I feel like Ghostbusters was super detailed
Oh yeah,
in set wise. It was just I felt like I was actually running through New York and like seeing the
like
Ghostbusters
the
take down some things, and also like all this. What was the saying?
we
We kicked
came,
his
we
ass,
saw, we kicked
we
its
kicked his
ass.
ass. Yeah, love that. It was such a cool ending to
Yeah,
everything.
I remember the
But
first time that I went on that house. The entire time I wasn't even like getting scared or anything. I was just awestruck as like the level of detail that was in it.
yeah, or probably quoting the crap out of it, which is also another thing.
Yeah,
Because especially if you buy the frequent fear, you will probably end up quoting the scare actors, and they're either gonna laugh at you or they're probably gonna be very annoyed that you stole their thunder. Facts. It's awful. Um, but overall, 29 was an amazing year.
it was also the
I
first
can't
year that we
complain about
got
it.
the Lagoon show too.
Oh yeah, the
Marathon
Lagoon
of
show,
Mayhem. That was a
which
pretty good show. I enjoyed it.
I
I'm
heard they were
excited
gonna
to
try and
see.
bring it back.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
And one more thing.
Hmm.
I did love this show of Academy of Villains much more than any of the shows that they have put out. That's in a popular opinion because everybody seems to like the House of Fears or Terrors, which is the Asylum one, more for their first year. But I really do enjoy the Jekyll and Hyde story that they were able to bring out this year
That
or
was
last year.
Altered States, right?
Altered States, yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, I really liked it. Have you seen it?
No, I didn't see it.
Duh, that's why you can't get hype with me. Dang, it was so good. I
Like I
watched
said,
that on a
at the
daily.
time, I was still kind of sad about the whole Bill and Ted thing, but like I've softened on my stance on it, so like now I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it. One of the things I really, really liked about this year too was the music. Like,
Oh
I love
yeah,
like the whole like hardcore synthwave soundtrack. Uh,
Darth synthwave video game esque
yes,
80s feel, and
and
it's
and the Vanity Ball remixes were so good.
uh, I
Vanity
wonder
Ball
did they
remixes.
actually was that actually like remixed
It was remixes, yeah.
for the event for
No,
the
it wasn't a
event?
remix for the event. No, they took existing remixes that somebody made, but like they were just so good.
Yeah, I agree. But like, I don't know if you know this, but like, I didn't notice this in the background.
Mm.
But apparently Slash had made a seven track album based on Universal Monsters, and apparently that was playing like in the
I
house, and I didn't even realize. I was like, "What?
I actually heard it wasn't for Orlando. I heard it was for Hollywood's.
Oh, really?"
Yeah, that's why. Because yeah, I remember hearing about that. I was like, I don't remember hearing anything guitar based like that at like the Universal Monsters house. Because I felt like it was all like classic, like Universal Monsters music.
Yeah, that I thought I heard that too, but I'm like, I don't think I heard anything Slash related. I guess people were lying on Twitter, or I probably wasn't paying attention.
I
I was like,
still I still
"Ugh."
love everybody that was joking around about it. It's like for the Universal Monsters house, everybody was like, "Did you see the Invisible Man?"
Oh no, stop. The poor guy, let him live.
I love how everybody, like the people that were falling for it, they was like, "No, I didn't see him." I was like, "Cause he's invisible."
That's so dumb. The fact that people, I mean, I don't blame the people who haven't watched all the movies yet, but like, um, if they are familiar with it and they can appreciate
Yeah,
Universal Monsters, then more power to them. But if someone gives you that trick, that's kind of on you. But
yeah. I definitely appreciated
to
the
each their
heck
own.
out of that house. Like specifically that first scene where just when you walk in, you're like underwater in the lagoon.
Yeah,
Oh
and
man,
that
that was so cool.
I only really like the beginning scene where you're walking through like a graveyard of where all the monsters are
Oh yeah.
before you even like get to experience them yourself as if you were in one of those old movies
Mm-hmm.
that Carl Emile have actually helped produce and direct, but he didn't direct most of them, but he just produced helped Germans produce it, so
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing.
And we can't forget the Frankenstein at the end either.
Oh yes, absolutely. But I think the one scare actor that stood out the most was the bride, which is probably why she was a huge speculation for this
For this
year.
year, yeah.
Because you have that girl screaming in your ear, but it's like, oh, love it. It was so good. Like, and Dracula. Everybody kind of simps over Dracula too. It's kind of creepy how Twitter can do that. They simp hard for Dracula.
Sorry, I'm sorry. We had to stop. I was about to cough. Oh
Oh
god, I
no.
choked on my own spit.
This is why we're in quarantine, guys.
Oh god, that's saying it. Okay. All right.
He's alive, guys. He's
I'm
alive.
alive. I'm still here. But yeah, Horror Nights wise though. I mean, I have so many just amazing memories from just like Horror Nights in general.
Me too. Even though we did start going a little bit later than other fans, it
Yeah.
is great to read on the history and actually appreciate all these characters and what the creative team has actually been able to put out for us. It's unfortunate about what happened this year with the whole COVID-19 situation and getting the
Yeah.
event canceled, which was probably the unforeseeable future for Horror Nights. But I'm pretty sure if we find a vaccine, they will probably come back really
Oh
strong.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's for the better. I'd rather go knowing that it's going to be a safe event, you know.
Yeah, I know that some of us were like too worried that it was going
Yeah,
to be a more watered down event
but
where
I'd rather go to a full event and wait a whole other year than go to this year and just have it be watered down. Especially when it's like
yeah,
a your
but
anniversary year, like it's not it's not fair to have a watered down event for such a huge year.
yeah, but I mean they did make up for it with the tribute store and
Yes,
I'm pretty
thankfully they
sure
did.
that um I don't know if they had already had that planned for a while that the tribute store was something to hold off for the fans for another year. But
I think it was something that they were planning on having just in case,
yeah, absolutely.
it's like a
I mean,
fallback.
it's I mean they got to make some money for
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully to make better things for
yeah.
next year.
I'm definitely thinking they're gonna come back like stronger than ever this next year.
Oh, absolutely. Especially being the 30th and with all the icons and all the
Plus that
speculations
extra,
that we have been seeing across
yeah.
the board is amazing.
Plus all the extra time that they have now to like really just get into it even more.
Absolutely.
So I think we're about to just end it here.
Yeah, we did just talk your entire ear off about Howling Horror Nights history. And hopefully, you guys are a little bit educated than you were before. But if you guys were already just here trying to reminisce on old times, then that's cool too.
Yeah, we are both of us are huge like Horror Nights fans, and we love getting like being able to share that passion with all you guys.
And especially the horror community is, and
Yes,
it's just in like the horror community in Twitter has been so accepting, especially of
it really
us.
has. Yeah, it's like I've honestly just super surprised as to, like how positive everybody's reaction has been.
Yeah, it could be worse, but you
Yeah.
guys are here. You guys are supporting us, even though we're just starting. But you can find me on Twitter on HHN Cultist and on my YouTube channel. I post vlogging and beauty stuff and makeup, and they're all basically horror based with Universal Halloween Horror Nights and just in general Horror Nights stuff. So,
Yep, and you can just find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sounds from the Grave. Just
well,
my
it's
stuff.
basically ours, but it's mostly
Yeah,
his. But
yeah.
tagging along
So,
for the ride.
yeah, and well, yeah. Hopefully, we have a new episode for you guys pretty soon. We just want to thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.